Good morning. The People's Action, good morning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to unmute it. Hello, how are you?
I am blessed. Thank you for asking. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Yes, this is Niggas Vu with the People's Action. How you doing? Miss City Council Lopez, this is directed at you. I want to commend you for your services in District 6 as a longtime servant of the people in the great city of Detroit. I do want to address the recent article in regards to you feeling discriminated against among some of your fellow city council members in respect to District 6. Ms. Lopez, my organization, the People's Action, has been organizing your district for 2 years. I've personally spoken to your staff, who was kind and generous, but by their own admission, they acknowledged that 48204, particularly the West Chicago, Illinois area that is predominantly Black, has and is being ignored. Many residents that I've spoken to also feel discriminated against and feel you have not given them the same attention that their community that you've given to the Southwest region. Ms. Lopez, I only ask on behalf of the senior citizens of the West Chicago, Illinois area that you please let their voices be heard and attend to their needs. And with my support, if needed, I'm more than willing to set up a meeting with those concerning residents. I have officially supported you in the past, and I have faith that you will make this right as you have done in the past. So thank you for listening. That's all. Peace and love.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Is that you, Member Raquel?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So I want to thank the gentleman. Thank you. I want to thank the gentleman that called, and I would urge you, please to call my office because we meet with that community frequently. We actually work with 10 different block clubs, and so would love to get you connected with them. We'll actually be out doing we were just out like a couple of weeks ago doing a tour related to the Joe Louis Greenway and working on a zoning, and we'll be out again. So would love to connect you to the groups that we're working with, and you see what other ideas folks have. In relation to the claims of discrimination, my office has released an additional statement. I find it incredibly alarming as a woman of color, the race baiting and the accusations that have been made by members of this body, and my office has issued a statement and continues to stand by the request for training to address those concerns. I know since day one, since when I first decided to run for office, unfortunately, my skin color is not necessarily the skin color that folks want. And I was told directly, you're not Black, you're not white, and so you're going to get love and hate from both sides of the community. And I recognize that. And since day one, my office has been committed to bringing people together and addressing those racial divides. And so again, we will be sharing the statement on social media. We've sent it out publicly already. All of this correspondence has been submitted publicly. We remain committed to making sure that every single Detroiter's voice is valued and addressing and holding folks accountable that engage in race baiting, that engage in undermining women of color, especially in elected office. So I look forward to hearing from you. Our office number is 313-224-2450. And to see how we can collaborate and to see you the next time we're outdoor knocking in north of Warren area, because we've done it nearly every single year. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am going to comment on that simply because I received a memo, and I'm going to read the memo that I received, and I was going to do it under members' reports, but since it came up now, I will read it now. And I received a memo that was, I assume, public to Council President Jones, Charity Dean, Denise Starr, regarding accusations of workplace hostility, intimidation, and council workplace from Council Member Raquel. During closing comments at the City Council formal session on January 26th, my concerns related to the rapport between council members, intimidation, and communications were reaffirmed. The suggestions to involve Creole in future communications was highlighted by Council President Jones. After the vote on the Clark Hill contract on January 26th, my office received communications expressing frustration about online harassment received due to the vote and the belief that my office was partially responsible for inciting the virtual and cyberbullying. These claims in of themselves foster a culture of intimidation, hostility, and fear. Sadly, this is not the first time my office has experienced this type of interaction from my colleagues. Both I and my team have experienced different forms of workplace hostility and intimidation since being elected in 2014. However, I remain confident and firm in my belief that many of these incidents are tied to a lack of self-awareness and that everyone is doing their best. In order to address concerns that were brought to my attention and that I experienced myself, I requested annual trainings be conducted for the full council on the following topics, being in 2015, sexual harassment, implicit bias, cultural sensitivity, and awareness. In footnotes, I requested these trainings be conducted in 2014 and 2017 during City Council orientation. A session was held. Subsequently, I requested an additional workshop be conducted with each council office. CREO scheduled a training for my office, but it was canceled several days in advance. Getting back to the letter, I believe any concerns related to workplace hostility, intimidation, and or discrimination should be taken seriously and addressed immediately. As such, I am requesting the council president, the human resources, and CREO immediately administer the training topics listed below and annually afterwards. Workplace harassment and discrimination, sexual harassment, unconscious and implicit bias, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please do not hesitate to contact my office if you have any questions, and it was CC'd to all of the Detroit City Council members. I am going to read my response, and I want to read my response because I want to try to stay on point as much as I can. Statement from Council President Brenda Jones regarding City Council work culture. On Friday, January 29, 2021, my office received a disturbing email from Councilmember Raquel, and I do not want to pronounce your last name improperly, so I will not pronounce it, alleging ongoing cultural problems in the Detroit City Council workplace. These are similar allegations Member Raquel expressed previously during a 2019 Facebook post. She also stated she believes any concerns related to workplace hostility, intimidation, or discrimination should be taken seriously and addressed immediately, in quotes. After having to recess a city council session during one of the incidents that occurred at the table in 2019, I met with Member Raquel after the session to discuss that and previous incidents brought to my attention by council members, my staff, and others. During the meeting, she accused me as well of discrimination against her. After the meeting, I contacted Charity Dean, Director of the Civil Rights Inclusion and Opportunities Department, to inform her of my discussion with Member Raquel. Later, after Member Raquel's Facebook post was brought to my attention, my office requested a formal CREO investigation. During the investigation, personally conducted by CREO Director Charity Dean, all 9 council members, the head of council's executive protection unit, council's parliamentarian, and the mayor's liaison to council were interviewed. In addition, several taped council members held between May and June of 2019 were reviewed and analyzed. The resulting investigation, in quotes, did not reveal sufficient evidence to support a finding that one or more council members engaged in intimidation, end of quote. The CREO report even stated that, in quote, Multiple witnesses raised concerns that Councilmember Raquel herself may be engaged in discriminatory treatment, end of quote, with one male council member stating, end quote, "You're not going to cascade another Black man at this table," end of quote. The investigation found the issues, end quote, arose because of negative interactions she had with male African-American council members, end of quote. My office has received various complaints from African-American staffers, both male and female, as well as residents of the District 6 community. There seems to be a pattern and a mindset of victimization in even Creole Director Dean cautioned member Raquel, end quote, to not approach things as a victim, end of quote, during the 2019 investigation, as member Raquel admitted in a Detroit News interview on January 29th. It is my hope that member Raquel will take her own advice, face up to these perceptions by colleagues, staff in the community, and make the changes necessary to conduct healthier relationships with those she interacts with on a professional or personal level. In 2015, a staff member of Councilmember Raquel's office made a claim of sexual harassment against a council EPU officer. The officer was briefly reassigned while interested parties were interviewed. The inquiry ended when a staff member declined to proceed. The officer, however, was left, end quote, demoralized and embarrassed by the incident, end of quote, according to the EPU supervisor. I take workplace allegations and claims very seriously. Since being elevated to council president in 2014, I have worked to establish an environment that respects all, led a professional legislative process, restored decorum and dignity, and attempted to rebuild the relationships with the community through accessibility and vigorous outreach and engagement. The Creole report reinforces this by stating, end quote, there is no evidence that council leadership participated in or condoned bad behavior among council members, end of quote. The Creole report additionally recommended training to improve relations and reduce interpersonal conflicts, end of quote, which subsequently my office recommended that all council members and staff receive. The scheduled training events for my staff was canceled early in 2020 by Creole due to scheduling conflicts and instructors' constraints. Human resources cultural training was offered to each new city council term in 2014 and 2018. I will continue to provide resources to improve council's performance individually and collectively as a body. Although the pandemic has changed how we interact daily with each other and the community, my office continues to work to create an environment where council members can conduct legislative discussions, debate, and interact with each other and the community in a safe virtual environment. This can be seen with the recent historic collaboration between Detroit City Council and the Mayor's administration through the 7-district community budget priority meetings. The goal was to inform and engage residents on the Mayor's fiscal year 2021-2022 recommended budget. My office continues to lead, support, and encourage collaboration between not only the Detroit City Council, but the Mayor's office and those who live, work, and play in our city. And as I indicated, I was extremely disturbed when I received that letter. I am not going to go backwards and forth with anybody on this comment this day and no other day. I read both letters. A comment was made. When we get to members' reports, you can make your comments, Member Raquel, but I am not getting ready to engage in a backwards and forth. When we get to members' reports, you made your comments. I read both letters. You can make your comments.
It's of your power right now to do that and not allow me an opportunity to reply.
I am running this meeting, and again, you can make your comments at members' reports.
I'm saying I believe
any additional comments?
Allow me to reply. Thank you.
Point of order. I am running this meeting, and anyone who wants to comment on that can make their comments at members' report. Do we have any additional public comments?
And Madam President, I also will say in relation to your comments earlier, I think you put together a wonderful statement. I have nothing more to add, but my statement was given to CREO 2 years ago, and that is all I have to add to this discussion. I trust we can move on from it and move forward and do our jobs to govern and lead this city as we've been elected to do, and not rehash 2-year-old issues that I thought were going away. But I appreciate your statement today and your leadership and with this matter. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Several things. Just went through our team's note to address the public comment stated earlier. And in our records, that organization, we actually worked with them to reestablish their block club on American and Prairie. We met with them several years ago and attended several of their block club parties, and they have been inactive for 1.5 years. I think that's important to state for the public record, because I think unfortunately what has been happening is race baiting. So I would like to use my time to read the statement that we submitted in response after we submitted a memo, which we believed to be innocuous, simply requesting training. So I was completely appalled. And so as I share this, it's important for me to remember, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000, in the words of Maya Angelou, that this is not my experience alone, and this is the experience of so many of women of color. So this is the statement I'll be sharing with the clerk's office that we also submitted publicly. My entire political career has been about building solidarity across racial and geographical divides. From walking the district 3 times to hosting community tours and launching leadership programs, all of my efforts have been in support of breaking down divisions and bringing people together. Given this, I am nothing short of dumbfounded by the statement from Council President Jones. In response to the memo I sent requesting training to address workplace culture, Jones' statement uses the CREO investigation, which found no council member guilty of creating hostility or discrimination, and an unrelated claim of sexual harassment, which was meant to be confidential, to justify actions of race baiting and absolve herself from any responsibility. I want just treatment for everyone involved. This is why I brought my concerns to our council president and requested training to address systemic and individual problems. Yet the fact that I am being accused, instead of the concerns being taken seriously and addressed, highlights how pervasive cancel culture and gaslighting are, even amongst communities of color. The attempts to portray this as a Black-brown issue is dangerous and reminiscent of the tactics used by the Trump administration. We have seen the damage that this divisive, hateful rhetoric wreaks on our communities and us as individuals, and are starting to see it now given the public comment today. As it relates to sexual harassment in the workplace, all the research shows that false accusations never happen. The fact that charges didn't proceed in the case of my former staff member exposes the societal pressure placed on women to back down. The mental distress of pursuing these claims, coupled with the difficulty of having to show up to work every day to face your coworker, especially a man in a position of power, silences so many victims. This is the same old school politics we have seen since the days of Anita Hale and Clarence Thomas, bent on undermining and silencing women. It is even more disheartening to be receiving this response from another woman of color. Whether intentionally or not, the words in the statement clearly uphold and perpetuate a message often directed towards women of color. If you speak up, you will be chastised, dismissed, and undermined. This creates a chilling effect on every single woman of color. What hope is there for justice if this is the type of response we receive from city leadership? The concerns I have raised are not just about me. They never were, and nor are they mine alone. They are the concerns of every single woman of color who has experienced discrimination or harassment in the workplace and been made to question herself, to doubt her own feelings, or to remain silent. When I think of the people who don't have my title or position of power, when I think of my 19-year-old niece, I am deeply unsettled. We need to make sure that our city's investigatory resources are spent actually investigating the claims versus investigating the persons reporting the claim. As it relates to Councilmember Benson's behavior towards me, this is about a man in a position of power and his treatment of a female colleague. This is not about making false accusations against Black men. Frankly, to insinuate that this matter is in the same category is an insult to the memory of the Black men who have been victims and have lost their lives to racism and violence. I ran for city council to ensure Detroiters' voice is valued and to speak truth to power. I have and will continue to lead with the values of justice, equity, and courage, because Detroiters deserve council members who lead with integrity. When someone does something wrong, I'm going to call it out. When people in positions of power abuse their power, I'm going to hold them accountable. The Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movements are too important for us to undermine by directing our anger and frustrations towards each other. This is not okay, and we are not doing this anymore. I am not doing this anymore. We are not going to be shamed and quieted by the oppressors amongst ourselves. Detroiters deserve better than this. I stand by my comments, I stand by my memo, and I again urge HR, council leadership, as well as CREO to immediately start implementing the recommendations of their investigation and training. I am again deeply disturbed that as a woman of color, elected to represent women and communities of color, that this is the type of response that received, and it is incredibly saddening because I know the effect that it has on me personally, being in a position of power, and I know how detrimental it is at silencing other folks. I say this in the hopes, as well as was stated in my memo, that we truly can repair the relationships, that we truly can work towards creating an environment where everyone feels included, everyone feels valued, and that it is a safe space. And so I look forward for those trainings rolling out, and I look forward to moving this conversation forward, because to ignore and to hide it under the rug is a disservice to so many. And with that, I'm not going to share any of my other members' reports. All of our information related to our events in February are posted on our social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Tate.
I have made my statements. I stand by those. I will be done with this situation.
Thank you, Member Benson. Whew. February is Black History Month, and my office is celebrating being Black in America. And I've been Black in America over 60 some years and have experienced personally discrimination. I'm not going to go backwards and forth with anybody about what Black means. I'm not going to go backwards and forth with anybody about women in color, men in color, Black men, or nobody else, because I've experienced it being down south. And that's why I'm in Detroit, Michigan today. So I'm not going to go backwards and forth with anybody because I don't have to, and I'm not going to. We will be having special digital programming and social media content throughout the month. This Wednesday at 2 p.m., I will host Live from the Table with Purchasing Director Boise Jackson. We will discuss Detroit contractors and contracts supporting Detroit businesses and Detroit resident workers. Next Monday, February the 8th, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. will be my virtual office hours, and my special guest will be Willie Donwell, Director of the Board of Review. He and members of my community relations and policy teams will be available to meet one-on-one with residents. Next Tuesday, February 9th, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. will be the Military and Veterans Affairs Task Force, co-chaired by Member Benson, McAllister, and myself. In recognition of Black History Month, we will honor Black veterans. Tonight at 8:30 p.m. will be my legislative rundown of today's council's actions. Please watch this. and all previously mentioned events live on my Facebook page. Please follow me on social media for dates and times of my Black History Month programming. I also just want to comment on comments talking about confidential reports. And let me just say that a report might be confidential, but if the person themselves speak about the report to others, the confidentiality is gone if the person themselves has spoke on it. I have spoken on nothing confidential, and even the Creole report, the person whom the report was made on brought up the Creole report. I brought up an incident that occurred with me, not a report. The EPU report was brought up by the EPU person themselves, who had to go to their wife and their family to let them know and to talk to other council members about it. I rest my case. I will continue to do my job as council president. I will not be disturbed by any comments by anyone. And I'm going to say that again, by anyone. And I am going to do my job, and I am going to detain the quorum of this council as long as I'm in charge of it. Now, when someone else is in charge, they can do whatever they wish. But I know parliamentarian procedures very well because I teach it. And I think Dr. Powers and I have discussed that matter several times. But I do know how to keep a meeting in order and how to run them. And on that, public comments is over. Under adoptions without committee reference.
There are no items, Madam President.
Under communications from the clerk.
A report on approval of proceedings by the mayor.
The report will be received and placed on file under testimonial resolutions and special privilege.
There are no items, Madam President.
There being no further business to come before this body, this meeting will stand adjourned.
God bless everybody now.